Hello, welcome to the first episode of Scatman Talkin, a series dedicated to the work of 90s pop icon and personal hero of mine, Scatman John. I was debating whether to cover this under my other series, Amazing World of Stuff, but I decided that John's legacy deserves more than to be lumped in with my other interests. He deserved a series all of his own. But there will be more episodes of Amazing World of Stuff, so regular viewers of that, don't worry. I've been a fan of Scatman John since I first experienced his debut song back in May of 1995, 31 years ago. He is, without a doubt, my favourite solo artist of all time. His music and message of hope, love and positivity moved me in a way that nothing else had done before. So now is the time for a series to express my appreciation for him and to connect with other Scatman fans around the world. In the future, I'll be going through his albums, videos, singles, and anything else that's of interest, so please do join me for this journey.
If you're tuning into this, thank you very much. I genuinely appreciate it. If you'd be so kind as to like and subscribe, then that would really help. And please do leave a comment after you've finished watching the video. I'm sure you'll have questions by the end. It's going to be a very special series, this, in that it's my first collaboration. Later in the video, I have an interview with my friend and author of the subject of today's video, Gina Waggott, the official biographer of Jon Larkin, in which she talks about her appreciation for the man and the artist, how he became a mentor to her, what it was like writing the book, and what discoveries she made whilst researching it. You're not going to want to miss this. The book, Scatman John, The Remarkable Story of the World's Unlikeliest Popstar, is one that I've been waiting for since the year 2000. It's the definitive story of Jon Larkin, aka Scatman John. It was released in hardback and on Kindle on February the 5th, 2026 and published by Bloomsbury. It's available through most high streets and online bookshops now, although I had to order my copy in. A point I will repeat throughout the video is that this is unpaid promotion. I do it for my love and appreciation of Scatman John and the wonderful folk behind his legacy. And the world is a better place for having John's message re-emerge after all this time. So, as I said at the top of the video, anybody who knows me knows that Scatman John is my absolute favourite artist ever. His music, his humour, his message of positivity, love, acceptance, and the belief in humankind's ability to create a better world really resonated with me. He was a cut above other dance artists around at the time, as through his life experience he brought an authenticity and sincerity to the lyrics he was singing, whilst his contemporaries were more manufactured with little depth to them. That's not to say that I didn't enjoy other dance artists at the time. A good tune is a good tune, and there was talent involved with the other groups. However, it wasn't just the scat singing gimmick. John stood head and shoulders above them because he had lived an unbelievable life and used that with the sole intention of helping kids of all ages overcome their personal struggles and accept their differences. During promotion at the height of his popularity, and he dominated the chart scene across Europe at the time, John was very open that the stutter he had since childhood, which was his greatest problem, became his greatest asset. He was also open that he was a former alcoholic and, to a lesser extent, drug addict. However, Gina undertook extensive research into John's life from friends, family members, artists who worked with him, and his own words, and there was way more to John's story than he ever let on. Let me be clear that, although the book is titled Scatman John, that's only the last part of a far bigger story. Taking the basis from an autobiography that John himself started in the 90s, Gina tells John's story from birth to death. It's a tale of struggle, adversity, self-doubt, addiction, rock bottom, acceptance, triumph and success. You learn much about his tragic experiences as a child, the burden of which he carried throughout his life, the solace he found in the piano, exhibiting a natural talent from the start, his discovery and passion for jazz, his early bands, his struggles with alcohol and drugs, his troubles with the law, and his turbulent first marriage. However, before you think that it's utterly bleak and harrowing, we also learn about him meeting and falling in love with his second wife Judy, to whom he was devoted until he passed. His attempts to make a jazz career in Europe, culminating in the creation and success of Scatman John. Scatman fans will be delighted that all three of John's albums, Scatman's World, Everybody Jam, and Take Your Time, all got very decent coverage in the book. One of my bugbears is when less successful albums from artists are just glossed over or reduced to a line or two in books. To the casual public in the UK, John only had one album out here and disappeared after Scatman's World. And I'm glad that anybody reading this will discover that his body of work is bigger than 2 singles and 1 album. There's no need to worry on this account, as Gina is an even bigger Scatman fan than I am, and she knew what Scatman fans would want to know about. Unfortunately, we know that the story didn't have a happy ending, and after being diagnosed with terminal lung cancer, John passed away in December of 1999. The events of his diagnosis, illness and passing are handled very sensitively. I'm not going to lie, I cried towards the end of this book. It was incredibly emotional and brought back a lot of memories for me from that time. Even if you weren't a fan of John's music, his was a completely inspirational underdog story. His life reads like a movie, only if it was pitched as fiction, it would probably be rejected for being too over the top. However, it's a genuine story of struggle and redemption. Some parts are difficult to read because John went through and did some terrible things. He admitted himself that he wasn't a saint, but he learned, overcame and grew, ultimately choosing to use his spotlight and talents to put out positivity to kids of all ages who might also be struggling. As a hardcore fan of Scatman John, Gina uncovered information that I didn't even know, so it was a huge surprise reading through this. It's an absolute page-turner too. There's never a dull moment in the book, and I found it very hard to put down, and that was before I'd even reached the Scatman portion of the book. I'm particularly honoured because I appear briefly in the book. It comes up in the interview with Gina, but through her, I got the chance to briefly chat with John in a Manchester phone box, and that tale is now part of the official Scatman John story. It's out on sale now on hardback, published by Bloomsbury, and can be ordered through most major online bookstores, as well as through the label that John called home, Iceberg Records. I highly recommend buying a copy because it's an incredible story, very compelling, incredibly emotional, and very moving. You'll finish the book and realise that John was more than just a perceived two-hit wonder. He was an incredibly accomplished jazz performer, a free spirit, a survivor, a man whose demons nearly got the better of him, and an artist who was genuinely sincere and honest in wanting the world to be a better place. And nobody could fault him for that. And so, I think it's appropriate at this point to bring in somebody who can elaborate on the book a lot more than I can. With that, I'm very pleased to be able to introduce my friend and author, the incredibly talented Gina Waggott.
So, Gina, thank you very much for taking time out to be on my channel. And would you like to introduce yourself and tell people what you've done?
Yes, in case it's not obvious from what's next to John. I'm Gina Waggott, and I am Scatman John's biographer, I guess you could call me, and also a very, very, very long time friend of Jonathan.
Definitely. We're going on for probably about 30 years now. We met in 1996. Do you remember how we met?
I do. It was back in the good old days of the early days of the internet, and I think I found your website, and it was dedicated to Scatman stuff, and we started exchanging letters, like actual written letters, and sending each other VHS tapes.
Yeah, that's right. Unfortunately, I didn't have a big sphere of fellow Scatman fans at the time, so it was lovely to talk to you. But at the time, I was desperately searching for the Everybody Jam video, and I'd been putting out messages on forums trying to find that. So I think that's probably another reason why you got in touch, because I think you said you were looking for it too.
Yeah, there was like a Scatman fan exchange, I think it was called, on Trinidad's old website. This is going back. This is like, 1996, 97. I was 15 or 16. It's horribly scary how long ago that was. But hey, look at us now. We're still here. We're still listening to Jon. And yeah, it's all good.
It is incredibly remarkable that 30 years on, his music and his work still stands up, and 30 years on, he now has his own biography.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming, but it's here, and lots of other stuff now in 2026, which is great.
I mean, it genuinely is remarkable because, like you said, there is other things. Last year saw the release of the Scatman's World 30th anniversary LP, which you contributed to. Would you like to tell people how?
Yes, I know we're going to talk about that separately, but I did some of the liner notes because I found Jon's the last song he recorded, which was given to me in 1999. So that's a longer story that we'll cover in a separate video, I think. But yeah, I'm delighted that came out on vinyl for the 30th anniversary.
And there's been another release as well, which is pre-Scatman stuff, John Larkin before Scatman, which is a vinyl EP.
Yeah, that was as a result of the book research. I got in touch with lots of musicians who'd played with Jon, but one of them, a chap called Duke McVinney, had some old tapes from 1978, so the earliest known recordings of Jon, and it took a while, but eventually a deal was done, and they were released by Iceberg Records about 3 or 4 weeks ago, not long ago. So that's fantastic.
So anybody who wants to own a copy of these things, by the way, pop over to the Iceberg website. It's incredibly worthwhile. There's some brilliant Scatman stuff for sale there, and there'll be a link in the description at the bottom of this video, so you can go straight there. And of course, your book is on the website as well. And it's worth mentioning that there are a couple of very fantastic bundles that you can get the book with some extra goodies, isn't there?
Yeah, I should say we're not getting a kickback for this or anything. We're just very enthusiastic about new Scatman stuff being sold. So yeah, there's a bunch of stuff, and in some cases you can only get the EP through Iceberg. You can get the book everywhere, but they're bundling it, and they're actually signed copies, I believe, because I signed some book plates, and there's a promotional bookmark as well that comes with it. All the promo stuff for the book you can get through Iceberg.
Yeah, absolutely. To reiterate that I am not being paid for this. This is all unpaid promotion. This really is done for the love of Jon's work and for the appreciation of Iceberg. And selfishly, I want them to sell loads of this stuff so they keep putting more out so I can buy more and add more to the Scatman collection.
Yeah, we should. Well, you have got a separate video that you should link to with your Scatman collection. It is very impressive. It's bigger than mine, I have to say. And I know that you've got stash that you've never displayed publicly. So we'll see about that.
Yes, the collection needs to grow. So you keep putting it out, I'll keep buying it.
Yep. So Iceberg will probably listen to this maybe or watch it. Hello, Team Iceberg. We love what you're doing. Please keep doing it.
So how has the book been received so far?
Really well, actually. I shouldn't say I'm surprised because that sounds like I didn't expect it to do well, but it was only released in English, which was a little bit difficult because most of Jon's fans are spread out all over and in all different languages. But the pre-orders were very strong. It's a hardback, so it's more expensive, and so sometimes I know people don't want to splash out on a hardback, but it is a first edition, and that's, if you're a fan, maybe that's important to you. But yeah, it's gone really well, and all the press in particular have been very they're both interested in Jon's story again, which is good because the 90s are making a bit of a comeback, but also the attitudes to stuttering in the media surprised me on how much that's come along. Like, I was on radio and podcasts and stuff just overtly stuttering like Jon did, and I don't think we've had that kind of representation in the media very much, even since Jon's days. So yeah, I was most pleased about that. And of course the book is going well, it's selling well, and the reviews have been fantastic. Thank you to everybody who's written one so far. So yeah.
I mean, it's very interesting because, to my mind, there's only ever been 2 songs about stuttering. One was obviously Scatman, and the second, which was much earlier than that, in the mid-80s, and it was a comedy novelty song by Morris Minor and the Majors called The Stutter Rap. But it was very much putting stuttering as a punchline, as a joke. So things have moved along a lot since then.
Yeah, they have. I don't know that one, actually, that you just mentioned.
Certainly a product of its time.
Okay, yeah. I mean, there's fake stuttering in a lot of songs, like My Generation by The Who, for example. That's in it deliberately. But no one's talked about it in a positive way in a song since Jon, and that was 30 years ago. That's incredible.
I mean, what was interesting in the book is that at the height of his popularity, Jon was getting offers, and one of the offers was for Good Humour ice cream. And he took exception when he saw the treatments for that, because they were thinking of hiring someone to impersonate a stutterer. Was that right?
Yeah, it wasn't. It's not a case of Good Humour were mocking stuttering. It was more like Jon was worried that might be the impression that it gave. So it's not quite the same thing. And he objected to a fluent person imitating a person who stutters. He was trying for a long time to do the ad himself, but he was on tour in Japan, so couldn't. And then he received like the lyrics to this "I'm the Good Humour Man," and it had a bunch of syllable repetition in it, and yeah, he didn't like it, and he was prepared to walk away from what was then a 6-figure deal in the 90s, a lot of money, but he just said this could offend the stuttering community. I don't want to do it. If they're going to imitate a stutterer, I'm out, basically. So I think that was one of my favorite stories, because it shows he really practiced what he preached behind the scenes. Nobody knew at the time that was going on, and to their credit, Iceberg stood with him and said, if this is going to look like any kind of mockery of a stutterer, we won't go with it. And in the end, I think they edited most of it out, so they got the other actor or whoever. It's on YouTube. It's around. You can see the Good Humour commercial. It turned out pretty well in the end, and they didn't have fake stuttering in it. There's a little bit in the rap, but that's it. So yeah, that was a great story to uncover, for sure.
Yeah, and that's something that I'd want to pick up on. Jon was prepared to walk away from the deal for that, but it comes across in your book that he wasn't a particularly materialistic person, but he did have, his emphasis was more on sort of spirituality. Do you think that's fair to say?
Yeah, I think so. Once he'd made a lot of money, as people did back then, because it was actually, shipping CDs and cassettes, and everybody made a lot more money in the music industry. So as soon as he'd bought a new piano, important, and then a new car and a house and a laptop, that was it. He couldn't think of anything else to really spend his money on. So he started a foundation to help people who stutter. That was his next thing. But sadly, that didn't really get off the ground because he got ill. not long after. But yeah, he didn't care about material things. He wanted to be paid for his work. You know, he was an artist, and after all, but he was still eating like the same $5 burritos he had always eaten at this place near his house in LA. It's still there. I ate there. It's very nice.
That's excellent. So yeah, he was very down to earth, and in fact, we'll segue into the story that involves the both of us, because if anybody who's ever spoken to me about Scatman, they know that I had the opportunity to speak to him via a phone box in Manchester, which was facilitated by you. Do you want to tell people what happened with that?
Yeah, we had just received, or one of us, I can't remember who, had just received the Take Your Time album, and we used to arrange to just meet up. We couldn't do, of course, there's no Zoom or anything. We had to just go meet each other, and we were in Manchester city centre, and this wasn't planned. I just said, "Hey, let's call Jon and see tell him what we think." As you do. I mean, we're very lucky in that I by then I'd been friends with him for a couple of years, and we were phoning each other often, so it wasn't unusual for me to just call him out of the blue. So yeah, we went into a phone box with a pile of pound coins, because it was like £1 a minute or something, and we were feeding them in. And I don't know what time it was in LA, but Jon answered, and he was pretty chipper that day. He was pretty happy. And I remember saying, "Hey, I've got your #1 fan here. Can you have a word?" And then I handed the phone to you, and you can say what happened next.
That's right. So in the mists of time, the actual conversation has just sort of blurred. But I remember him saying, "What's your name?" "I'm Jon." "Oh, my name's Jon too." Like, I know. And I have it in my head that he says, "Oh, I'm British too," or something like that. I'm like, "No, you're not. You're American." But I didn't say that. I'm like, "Wow, are you really?" And then it was basically gushing, saying, "Oh, I've just got you. We've got your third album. It's brilliant. Love it. Absolutely brilliant." And then he scat sang for me, and it was at that point I slid down the window of the telephone box like that. "Oh, this is amazing."
Yeah, I remember your knees went, and I could hear Scat singing coming out the phone. I thought, oh yeah. I think the British thing, by the way, was because he was actually Irish. His grandfather emigrated from County Galway, and Jon always called himself an Irishman. Not many people know that. It never came up in other conversation, but he loved to do a British accent as well.
He did always seem to have a very playful personality in the interviews that he gave.
Yeah, off the top of my head, I can't remember one where he does do the British accent, but I've seen there's something around. I can remember hearing it, but yeah, he was in a good mood that day, and we didn't know this, but it was probably either just about to be diagnosed or just after, but you wouldn't know from talking to him on that day.
No, it was he was very clear, very lucid. I mean, I don't think I even realized he was ill at the time. I don't know whether you did.
He was saying strange things on that phone call. I remember it well, because he said, I think my life's falling into a black hole," which was an odd thing to say in a kind of a cheerful way. And I think that is the conversation where he said, "Whatever God wants is fine by me. I've had the very best life. I have tasted beauty," which was, of course, we didn't know what was going on, but so he was obviously thinking about it. But then after that, we just said, "Oh, we've got your third album," and then he went on a bit of a rant about the record industry after that. But yeah. But no idea that he was ill. He didn't sound ill. He was exactly as you would expect.
I mean, it's an incredibly surreal situation to be in because, I mean, this man was an international pop star, and yet you could phone you phoned him at home, and he was willing to talk to a complete stranger on the phone just to make his day, as he's being diagnosed with what we now know as terminal lung cancer. I mean, that really speaks to his character.
Yeah, he could have easily said, "I'm sorry, I don't have time. Can I call you back?" None of that. It was like, "Yeah, put him on." You know, it's just, yeah. But that was John. Yeah, that's exactly what he was like.
He's such an incredible guy, and he's definitely earned the appreciation that we have for him.
Yeah, it's good when you go into somebody's life and you get to know them, and it's the never meet your heroes sort of thing. Well, I met my hero, and he was delightful and everything I could have imagined, which I know a lot of people out there would probably be happy to learn that John was the same in private as he was in public. So, because that's rare, actually. I think it's quite rare.
It certainly is. So what was the defining moment for you to write this book?
The defining moment, while I was writing it, or what made me write it, or
Yeah, what was the moments that you thought, I have to write this book?
I think it was partly because there's the earlier comic by I shouldn't call it a comic, sorry, graphic novel by Jeff Chi, and
We appear in that, don't we?
we appear in it. I mean, I know Jeff. I'm a friend of his. He's been very helpful with this book, but it got me thinking about a long form traditional biography, and at the same time that I started thinking that, and remembering that I had all this material that over the years, because I stayed after John died, I stayed in touch with Judy Larkin for many years, and we used to discuss John's story a lot and say how it needed to be out there, that like the whole story that nobody knew. And so I started thinking about it, and around that time, Judy sadly passed away, and then I thought, oh God, if I don't do something, his story is going to be lost forever, and I guess it's down to me to do it. And I really wanted to save his story, because it was so little was known about his life, because he was famous at the cusp of the internet era. There was really nothing before Scatman. There's nothing known about the guy, so I just started doing the work, and I thought it would take a year, and it took 3.
What was your pitch? Because it's published on Bloomsbury and it's out now, and I recommend that everybody at this point go out and order this book. What we would say at the moment as well is, if you're sitting there thinking, oh, I'll just wait till paperback, there's no guarantee that it will be out on paperback unless sales of this hardback go very well. So don't hesitate, go out and buy the book now.
Yeah, John used to work in what was it, Shopping TV?
It was. I wasn't a presenter.
You could tell. They see how it's done. It's like, buy this book now. It may not be here, but it's true actually. It may not. The hardback first edition is a limited print run, and it doesn't mean that there'll be a. Yes, you can get it on Kindle, but an ebook, but it doesn't mean there'll be a paperback. We don't know yet. They're waiting to see how it does. So, yeah. I've forgotten the question that you asked me.
I think at this point it was just promotion. So again, to reiterate, I'm not being paid for this. I've actually gone out and bought this book myself. Gina has on several occasions offered to send me a copy, and I have told her many times that even if she does, I will still go into a bookshop and pay my own money for this, because when am I going to get a chance to buy a Scatman piece of merchandise in a UK shop again? This could be the last time, and I'm going to take advantage of it. So,
oh yeah, we'll send you a signed one though. You know that. I'm in the US. But yeah, it is. I want to be able to go into a shop and buy a Scatman product in 2026. It's just cool. I just love it.
Absolutely. So, what was your pitch to Bloomsbury? How did you put it to them that made them go, yes, this is a story that we want to tell and put out?
What's interesting about the pitch, my literary agent, I don't think had heard of Jon before, and my editor at Bloomsbury certainly hadn't. It was this strength of the story that sold it to them. When what you have to do in a book proposal is, for non-fiction, you don't write the book first. You do a proposal where it says, here's what's going to go in this chapter, this chapter, this chapter. And both my agent and my editor understood that this was not really a book about a 90s Eurodance star. It's a book about using what is different about you and using it as a strength and putting yourself out there and not being ashamed of who you are, like Jon was all his life. So it's about being different, being neurodivergent, having a speech disability. I stutter too, and so I knew that I could write it from that perspective. So really, it's kind of like the ultimate underdog story. It's not necessarily about, Scatman John as a musician, although there's a lot of that. There's like, how were the songs made, how he did in Japan, and all the good stuff. But before that, Jon's life was tragic, really, and traumatic. He used to say his childhood was turbulent. I remember he used that word a lot, but it's like turbulent really minimizes what it was like, and that he survived to even become Scatman is a miracle.
It really is. There's a lot of things in the book which, I mean, if the average person on the street maybe would know Scatman, the songs Scatman and Scatman's World, and they would not think this is a man who collapsed and nearly died on his heroin dealer's floor, or this was a man who'd done some jail time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he was not just a drug addict, he was a drug dealer. He was dealing cocaine, he was on heroin. Like you said, he OD'd on his dealer's floor. The dealer had to resuscitate him, and just a bunch of other stuff, in and out of jail, multiple DUI arrests, that kind of thing. So that would be a surprise to many people, I think.
I mean, the book is full of surprises, and I don't want to give too much away because I think it's important that people come to it not blind, but I think there needs to be that surprise element. You need to sort of start the story thinking this was a guy in the 90s who put out a couple of eccentric pop songs, and then you follow his life from childhood through to death, and it will surprise you and it will shock you, but hopefully you'll see how he arrived at the things that he did, and you'll still feel sympathy for him, because I think you've done that you've written it in a very sympathetic way. You don't sugarcoat things, but we still do have sympathy for him.
Yeah, I didn't want to sanitize his life. I've said this to other people. Like, if I just glossed over the bad bits, I think it would do him a disservice. And Jon was all about telling the truth, and he would want it to be known how low he went, how, what depths he went to, because it just makes the transformation all the more wonderful when it happens. And yeah, he wrote parts of it down, the difficult bits. That he was a survivor of child sexual abuse as well was not known publicly before it was put in this book. But I know that he wanted to include it because he wrote bits and pieces down in like a intended memoir, but it was very fragmented. That it doesn't cover the Scatman years at all. It was just like bits of his life, but he included that, and so I know that he wanted it to be out there. So yeah, difficult reading in some places, and difficult to write it as well.
Yes, it doesn't sort of shy away from the terrible things that happened to him. But then, as you said, he went through terrible things. The drink, the drugs, the bullying, and that in his childhood. And yet, he came through all of that and became Scatman and made the conscious effort to put something positive out into the world.
Yeah, I think only people who are sort of broken to that degree can speak sincerely as he did about so many things by the time he became famous. I mean, he wasn't just talking the talk, he'd done it, he'd been there. And I think that one thing that I know that a lot of Scatman fans know is that Jon was sincere. He was absolutely meant every word of everything he said in his lyrics, because he'd lived it. It was from his lived experience. So it's good to see, no matter how familiar you are with his music, you will see something in the story that you'll go, that's why he said that about that. And it all starts to make sense.
So yeah, Jon's sincerity was absolutely one of the reasons why his legacy still endures today, why his music still endures today. I mean, he was a cut above a lot of the other Eurodance acts at the time, because it was a lot of the songs weren't really about much. It was about partying, sex, having a good time. It was just music that you could dance to. The lyrics weren't particularly important. But in your book, Jon was basically given free rein to write about what he wanted, so long as the music was good.
Yeah, I don't know how unusual that is. Maybe most Eurodance artists were doing lyrics that were simple for days, just to go with the dance. The music was first, but Jon came into it the other way around. He came with his lyrics first on a big notepad or on his laptop, and Ingo Kais and Tony Catania tell me that was how they started doing the songs. It was Jon brought a bunch of lyrics, and then they would simplify them because they were always too complicated. They said it was Jon's very intricate playing with time and language like he used to do, and make it into a more simple song. But I think because you can tell that the depth in some of the songs is from that they're coming from the lyrics first.
Absolutely. I mean, the Scatman's World album was an album that had some substance to it, which again is why we love it so much.
Yeah, we can nerd out on that in the video about the vinyl.
Indeed. So, a question for you. Whilst you were researching this book, what treasures did you find?
That's a good question. I said I did, it took 3 years to do, then a year of that was the actual writing itself. But of course, for me, the research was great fun. I mean, sometimes very, very sad and traumatic to read or understand some of the bits, but a lot of it, especially when you get to the Scatman era, is joyful and brilliant. And both Jon's family, his stepson Lee Newman, Judy's son, who now runs the Scatman estate, was super, super, super helpful. He was great. He let me look through all the archive. Everything was in boxes in storage, and Judy and Jon had not thrown very much away. Lee had not thrown anything away, so it was all there, gathering dust and not being touched for years. And I just went back to LA, I think 3 times, and went through all this stuff. The Larkin family, his older brother Bill is still with us, and they've always been super supportive as well. And they let me look through photo albums and what have you. And of course, Iceberg. also had not thrown anything away. They'd kept every email, every fax from the 90s, and had these huge files, and let me go through them all in their office. So everybody connected to the project, I'm very lucky, because they were all amazing and supportive, and I couldn't have done it without that kind of support. And because I had that access, yes, I did find treasures. And I remember my other half, Graham, jokingly saying, come on, what would be the ultimate find while you're researching this book? And I said, oh, an unreleased Scatman album. That would be good. And I was joking, but I ended up finding one, which is incredible. And what it was, I didn't know this, but back in the 90s, you can record studio tapes on VHS tapes. They could be saved onto VHS, so it looks like a VHS, right? And there were these 3 tapes in a box at in Lee's storage, and they weren't marked. All they had is a number sequence on them, and so it was 1, 2, and 3 at the end of this sequence of numbers. And we put it in. We were putting videos in the He had a VHS player, old music recordings and stuff, that a lot of it that we'd seen before, but we put these tapes in and it was just static. And he was like, there's nothing on this tape, do we throw it away? And I remember he was like hovering over the trash can because we couldn't see anything on it. And I just said, just wait a minute, there must be a reason why there's these numbers on it. And then I took it to a studio, and they knew instantly what it was. They said, yes, there are tracks on this. It's a recording. And I had it digitized. And I find what was essentially the 3rd Scatman album. So Take Your Time is not the 3rd Scatman album. It is the 4th. And yes, it was brand new song. Well, they were demos. They were not finished songs, but there were about 5 or 6 of them that John had recorded in 1997 before he was ill. So his voice is good, his voice is strong. And I think around 3 of them were pretty good demos with all the stems and everything. So I found an unreleased Scatman album. Maybe not an entire album, but certainly enough tracks to be interesting. And in addition to that, I found one song that was recorded for the Everybody Jam album, but that never was released, called Hand of Fate. And so if, fingers crossed, if a vinyl gets released of Everybody Jam, the album, that will be the bonus track. I hope. I don't know. That's not there's no confirmation they're going to release it or that it will be a track, but that's the thinking. And I really hope that comes out. It's got a saxophone on it. John's voice is a little bit hoarse. That's probably why they left it off. Not because he was ill like he was later. I just think his voice was tired from a day of recording or something. So, yeah, treasures and things like this. The original footage of John from the music video, there's no sound, but there's the images of him miming the first song over and over in a studio in London, stuff like that. So there's all excellent stuff.
It sounds it, and obviously people will be now screaming at the screen. What's the possibility of it being released? And from my point of view, what's the possibility of it being released? You to Iceberg, you put it out, I will buy it.
Yeah, that's sorry to dangle a carrot like that and not be able to follow up. I can't speak on behalf of Iceberg, but I do know that they are working very, very hard at it. These things take a lot of time. Just as an example, the EP tracks that just came out like a month ago. So it took about 2 years. I I found out about those about 2 years ago. So that's the kind of time scale. You've got to do all the rights clearance. You've got to find the producers. This was not a Tony and Ingo album, the third one. It was when they were already moving on to something else, which is why Take Your Time had a different production team. The different production team were being scouted at that time. So it's a couple of different producers. So will it be released? I hope so. I hope so. It all depends on rights and timing and how well the other stuff does, of course. So if people keep buying it, they'll keep putting it out. But yeah, but there are lots of things going on behind the scenes which I would love to share, but I can't. My hands are tied, but I can share that because I found it. I can tell people it exists. But sadly, I can't leak anything because they'll kill me.
No, that's incredibly understandable. And it's just nice to know that that stuff is out there. And I trust that Iceberg will put it out if they're able to, because obviously we've had the Scatman's World's 30th anniversary LP. We've now got the John Larkin Before Scatman EP. So, yeah, I'm happy to wait, and I'm a guaranteed customer should there be any further releases, and of course the book as well. So the past couple of years, it's nice to know that there's a bit of a resurgence in Scatman merchandise for us to pick up. And if you haven't already, I highly recommend you hotfoot it over to Iceberg or to your local bookshop website and order a copy of the book or the LP or the EP, whatever tickles your fancy. Get all of them. Not paid.
Yeah, there's a bundle on there that is everything plus in a tote bag, I think it is. Yeah, so they're not sort of charging a premium on top of the normal price of the book for a signed book. So there you go. You can get it for the normal price, but signed with a bookmark. So.
Well, yeah, before I started this, I actually noted down what it is. So there are 3 bundles: the large package, the medium package, and the small package. So for the small package, you get the book, the John Larkin Before Scatman EP, and a tote bag. The medium package, you get the book, the Scatman's World's 30th anniversary LP, the John Larkin Before Scatman EP, and a tote bag. And the large package, you get the book, the Scatman's World's 30th anniversary LP, the John Larkin Before Scatman EP, the tote bag, all 3 of the Scatman albums on CD, and the original single as well. But there'll be a link down there that you can go to the Iceberg website and pick up whichever one you fancy. I am not being paid for this. Go and buy these so they can put more things out.
Listen to John. Both Johns.
So getting back to the book, how did it evolve from your original idea? What was the idea that you started with, and how did it finish? And were you surprised at the shape that it took on the journey?
It ended up pretty much how I intended it, because like I said before, you sell a non-fiction book, you have to lay it all out. You don't write it but you send sample chapters. So I knew how it would begin and I knew how it would end, and I roughly knew what was in between. What I definitely wanted to do is go from cradle to grave sort of thing. Like nothing would be excluded. I wanted this to be the definitive story of his life. Hence the huge amount of research. I mean, at the back of the book, there's like 30 pages of endnotes because I just verified everything. Because we're in, the world of AI and making stuff up, and there's a lot of rumors as well about things that John either did or didn't, like collapsing on stage towards the end of his life, which was not true. So it was just very meticulous going through everything, but also making it run like a good narrative story, because I wanted people to pick this up even if they'd never heard of Scatman John. You can still enjoy this story of his life. You don't have to be into stuttering or jazz or Eurodance or any of these themes. You can just enjoy it as a man who took something that he thought was a problem and just made it into his greatest strength, as he liked to say.
You rather preempted the next question, because I was going to ask, what is the appeal of this book to non-Scatman John fans?
Same thing. I think it's what made it appeal to the people in the publishing industry. I mean, Bloomsbury is one of the world's biggest publishers. They don't take a gamble on things that are no good. I would like to think so anyway. So it's like, it's a remarkable story. I mean, it's in the subheading. It's not like hyperbole to say that this is a remarkable story. One of the best stories in pop music. Even if you hate John's music, you can find something in it, I think, especially now. You know, we've talked about this before. I think John thought the world was pretty nuts in the 90s. I mean, who knows what he'd make of it now? Maybe it was supposed to come out now and just give people a boost, you know, because it's kind of redemptive and uplifting, but also bittersweet at the end. So it's I wouldn't say it's like it's feel good exactly, but it's just a great story. And yeah, I need to be not embarrassed about saying this about it. It's so against my British politeness to say this book is really good. Actually, you should read it, but it stands up. I'm proud of it. I think it's good.
I've read it about 4 times, and it really is. I mean, as a Scatman fan, you know, I'm biologically ingrained to love this, but I really do. And even as a huge Scatman fan, there was a lot that I learned. And one of the things I really enjoyed about it is that there's a good balance, because yes, Scatman is quite prominent at the end, and nothing is really glossed over. I mean, there are bands that I like, and I've read books about them, and I really like this album, and the coverage of it is a line or a paragraph. There's no depth into it. You've really gone into detail in these 3 albums, so it will satisfy you if you're a Scatman fan. But there's very much made of his life leading up to that. You know, Scatman is sort of the end of a very interesting life. And as you said, it is incredibly redemptive, because he went through terrible things. You know, he was very self-destructive. He realized that before things went so far that he died, and he bettered himself, and he put something positive into the world. But as you say, obviously we know how the story ends, and it's not happy. But it is the fact that he went through all of this and then said, I can put something positive into the world through my art. And then, just as he was at the height of his success, it was tragic. And, you know, it feels like he had a lot more to give, but his past caught up with him.
Yeah, I often think, what would John have done had he lived? But in a way, he couldn't have really become Scatman if he hadn't have lived through hell. It was just one thing always depended on another thing, I noticed in his life. It couldn't have gone any other way for it to, otherwise it wouldn't mean the same. And yeah, it is kind of tragic at the end, but the turnaround is that this is still reaching people today. Iceberg have all the behind the scenes stats on his streaming numbers and demographic, and it's going up and up and up. It's the highest it's ever been, and most of it is new fans, not we oldies. It's the new generation. It's, you know, they're all 20-year-olds and they weren't even born when the single came out, which makes me feel so old. But I've delighted to meet some of these, I could call them kids of all ages, when I've been out doing book events and so on, and they're just so into it, and it's great. And I just think, wow, you weren't around when Jon was around, but the message is doing the same thing it was intended to do. And I've noticed there's a thread running through the new. I mean, this might be just my small sample looking at, but I think a lot of people, they feel like they don't quite fit in, or they're different somehow, or they're neurodivergent, or they're feeling otherwise like an outsider. And Jon really speaks to them, and they embrace him. And through his music, if it continues to come out, he's embracing them right back. And I just think that's wonderful. It's one of the best things that's come out of writing this, was realizing just who is responding to Jon's story. It's not just the 90s nostalgia train, which has left the station. You know, it's a whole bunch of other people, or people who recognize him from memes or internet. He's been part of internet culture for a long time and doesn't ever seem to go away, which is, again, great. And I would urge everybody who only has a surface level interest in Jon to just dig a bit deeper, and you'll find all sorts of stuff, and it's good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely 100% on that. But I think that everybody can recognize the line, everybody stutters one way or another. Because we do, you know, Jon's issue was stuttering, but we've all got our issues, and we've all got our roadblocks in life. And Jon's music and Jon's message was very much about overcoming those problems and learning to accept yourself. And it's not an easy thing to do. But the message is there, and hopefully it resonates with people, and it's you know, it'll make people feel as good as we did back in the 90s. Because the 90s, the 80s were pretty cynical, and there was a lot of hope and optimism. People did have a positive outlook in the 90s. And Jon's message fitted in very well there, because he said himself, he said, we'll either destroy the planet or we'll save it. And he said, I think we're going to save it. Unfortunately, now we're about as far removed from Scatman's world as it's possible to get. So it's another reason why it's lovely to have reissues of his music and the book, something positive in these terrible, terrible times.
Yeah, I mean, his message, you don't even have to overcome the thing that makes you different. It's embrace it instead. And that's, of course, it's way more accepted now than it was back then. Back then, being a person who stutters, being someone, you know, I'm a massive introvert. So doing book promo is like an absolute alien thing to me. But I just thought of Jon when I was doing it, and all the other people, and thinking, hey, okay, you don't have to pretend to be somebody else to do this. Just be yourself. As Jon would say all the time, be yourself, be good to yourself. And it sounds so simple, but it's still true. It's more true today.
Absolutely. And all of this stuff was right there in his music. Now, you've done, the book launched in America, didn't it? You've done 2 promos for us. Where were they?
Yeah, we launched on publication day in New York City, and then I went to do an event in LA, so Jon's friends and family could be there. That was a good one as well. They were both really well attended and really lovely, supportive vibe at both. And I'm coming home to the UK soon, and I think we'll have a UK event towards the end of June, I believe. It was originally going to be in April, but now it's going to be June. and I really hope we can get as many fans as possible. You don't have to come and buy the book. You could just come and hang out. It's always fun when Scatman fans get together. And yeah, end of June. We don't have a venue yet, but it'll probably be London, and there'll be some special guests, I hope, including you, John.
If I can make it, and I've been pre-warned, then I will definitely come along. But if you're happy to come back on this channel, we'll promote it a bit nearer the time when we've got details.
Yeah, let's entice everybody to join us. Shame we just can't call John on the phone as well, but you know, he'll be there in spirit.
Yeah, absolutely. And I hope that, I mean, you know, do buy the book, or alternatively pick a copy up. If you come along to this event, Gina will sign it for you, and it will be such a beautiful, affirming event, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'd like to make it just a kind of a general Scatman appreciation vibe. So everybody's invited. Please come along. More details will follow.
Yes, you can meet me and Gina there, and we'll keep you posted as to when that's going to happen. Just to lower the tone, though, when John passed on the 3rd of December, I was visiting you in Lancaster, so we found out the news together. What do you remember about that time?
Well, in retrospect, I'm glad that you were with me, and we didn't see each other that often, maybe once or twice a year. And somebody commented, I think it was my dad, said, of all the days for this to happen, it's that Jonathan is there with you. And I went to I think it was when we had IT labs in my university, and I'd received an email from a friend of John's on the 3rd of December, and it just said, Gina, John has left us. And I think I don't know if I burst into tears, you did. It was devastating. And I can't remember the rest of that evening. But
no,
yeah, I mean, it wasn't unexpected.
No, it wasn't unexpected, but it doesn't make it any easier. I don't sort of remember much about it. I remember because I visited you in Lancaster Uni where you were, and we were having a really fun evening. I remember us messing around in the arcades, and we'd gone for something to eat. And I think you must have said, well, let's go and check my email. And then obviously that email came through, and it was just like a ton of bricks hit us. All I remember is going home the next day, and my sister picked me up from the train station in the car, and I was still in shock, and I said, John's gone. And I remember I put cassette tape, because I always carried, you know, a Scatman tape around with me. I put that in the car, and again his music came, you know, I think it was Sing Now came on, and I just started crying. I was just devastated for the rest of the evening, you know, for a long time afterwards.
Yeah, it's making me sad thinking about it. I remember the website crashed. The servers went down. There was so much traffic back then. I mean, early days of the internet, it crashed the site from people trying to find out information about him passing away. But yeah, it wasn't unexpected, but at the same time, it was a shock. And that was that. He had a couple of very nice obituaries in the New York, not the New York Times, the LA Times. The Independent in the UK did a nice one, and that was, you know, that was that for a long time. But we did set up a tribute page, and that was run by Judy Custer, who is a speech and language therapist. And this page had hundreds of tributes on it, and it kept running, I think, up until the pandemic, until Judy stopped maintaining it, which is incredible. It was like a steady stream from 1999 to 2020 of people just wanting to share how much Jon meant to them.
I mean, absolutely, and the fact that he must have been ill. He must have started being ill around 1997, or so ill that he couldn't really do much in the way of publicity. So the third album, Take Your Time, sort of came and went. There's no music video or anything like that. But the fact that he was still in the consciousness that much was incredible.
Yeah, there hadn't been a hit then since 1996, I think. So it'd been a while, but yeah, people hadn't forgotten him. And then I guess there was a period of time where everything went very quiet for a while. And then maybe in about 2010, it just started up again.
That's right, because I think everybody realised what an incredible song Scatman was. And it was used in samples or homages in other tracks. For people who were obviously kids at the time when Scatman came out, who've climbed the way into the music business and are now recording their own songs. And it's lovely that even 10 years later, people are like, oh, this was amazing. Let's present this to a new generation. And again, here we are 30 years later, and the same thing's happening. The records are coming back out. He has his book. It's remarkable. It's lovely that he's now a through line for multiple different generations.
Yep. Scatman's world is here to stay. That's for sure. Come and join us in it.
Well, Gina, thank you very much for joining me. There's probably 1,000,001 questions that will occur to me after we finish this. So if there is anything that you wanted, that you've been screaming at the screen, why didn't you ask Gina this? Put it in the comments. Gina, would you be happy to come back and answer more questions?
Of course. I'd be delighted to. And yeah, come and ask us anything in the comments. We will do our best to answer your many questions, I hope. We never, ever, ever get tired of talking about Jon. So yeah, go ahead. Even if it's the poo jokes, because we've been receiving those since 1995, so we're used to them. Well, maybe I shouldn't have said that. It would attract people, but certain people.
Yeah, I probably will delete a lot of those comments, but you never know. If you make me laugh or it's original, it might stay. But I do Scatman at karaoke, and there are two predictable responses. The people who, after I finish singing it, go, oh, that was amazing, I remember him. And then there's always the people who think they're incredibly original and funny to come up to me and say, you know what scat really means? And I always say, yes, it's an improvised form of jazz from the 1920s. Why? What do you think it is?
Yeah, too right. Well, Jon was like, he used to laugh at that as well. It's not new. He used to call Scatland Crapland occasionally, just for a joke. So it's like he beat you to it. So if you insist, go ahead. But
But Gina, that's brilliant. Really good luck with the book. You've done an absolutely incredible job. Again, you can pick up the book through your local book shop via physical bricks and mortar store or the website. It can be picked up from Iceberg's website in multiple different bundles. Again, I am not being paid to promote this. I do it because I'm a huge fan of Jon's work and I want more Scatman stuff to be released so I can add to my collection. But please do support physical media and the artists who put it out. Let's keep Jon's legacy alive. And let's support Gina because she's put a lot of work into this book and she definitely deserves her dues.
Thank you very much, Jon. And thanks for having me on your channel. I can't believe this is the first time we've done this. Let's do it again.
I certainly hope we can. Well, Gina, thank you very much for that. And we will see you again.
Thank you and bye-bye.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that as much as we did. This brings us to the end of today's episode. However, if you do have any questions that you'd like answering, then please do leave them in the comments section below, and Gina and I will record another episode answering them as best we can. Again, please don't forget to like and subscribe. The next episode will look at the album Scatman's World, which celebrated its 30th anniversary last year. Gina and I will look back on the album and give you our thoughts on it. I highly recommend buying the book or getting your local library to get a copy in for you. Don't forget, there's links below to the iceberg bundles if you want to really treat yourself. Until next time, thank you very much for joining me, and we'll see you soon.